I remember the day I first met Erik vividly, as if it happened just yesterday. It was at this small, cozy cafe where I often found myself lost in my own thoughts, sipping on the most affordable coffee they had to offer, trying to organize the chaos in my mind. Then, like a scene from a simple movie, he walked in. There were no grand lights or dramatic music, just the gentle sound of the bell above the door and the scent of coffee mingled with his aftershave. "Is this seat taken?" he asked, pointing to the empty chair across from me, his smile so charming it could sweep you off your feet. "It looks free to me," I replied, trying to appear nonchalant despite the sudden flutter in my heart at his unexpected arrival. We struck up a conversation, and it felt like we instantly clicked. We shared common interests, from binge-watching trashy TV shows to debating over the best pizza toppings. Pineapple, fight me. Fast forward a bit, and we found ourselves in a serious relationship. It felt like I had known him forever, and before we knew it, we were discussing the possibility of marriage. But then came the drama. His parents were quite the characters. Meeting them felt like walking into a lion's den wearing a meat dress. They smiled at me, but it was more like they were sizing me up, deciding if I was worthy of their son. "So, you're the girl Erik can't stop talking about," his mom said, her tone anything but warm. "Guilty as charged," I retorted, trying to maintain my composure despite feeling like I was under a microscope. They wasted no time in laying down the law, insisting we sign a prenuptial agreement. I wasn't after their money, but the idea rubbed me the wrong way. I agreed to sign it with one condition: if either of us cheated, the cheater would pay up $100,000. Erik looked shocked at my stipulation, but he agreed. We thought that settled things, but oh, how wrong we were. One evening, as we cuddled on our old, worn-out couch, a tradition we had since moving in together, we talked about our dream trip to Italy. We knew it was a stretch financially, but we were determined to make it happen. "Think about it, Erik. The food, the wine, the art. We have to go," I exclaimed, my eyes shining with excitement. He laughed, pulling me closer. "You had me at food, but let's be realistic. Our bank account is more suited for backyard camping than a romantic getaway to Venice." I playfully nudged him. "Then we'll save. We'll cut back on things we don't need, like your video games." He pretended to gasp in horror. "Not the video games. Take my shirts, my shoes, even my beloved coffee maker, but leave the games alone." We laughed, but it was moments like these that made us truly happy. It wasn't just the big dreams, it was the little things, like Erik making breakfast on Saturdays, even if he couldn't cook to save his life. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and that was enough. One day, while I was preparing the morning coffee, a conversation we had been avoiding found its way to the surface. We were washing dishes together, a simple chore that felt oddly significant because we were doing it side by side. "Clara, we need to talk about, starting a family," Erik said, breaking the comfortable silence that enveloped us. I paused, holding a plate in my hand. "I know. It's scary, isn't it? What if we can't?" Erik turned to me, drying his hands on a towel. "Then we'll deal with it together. But we won't know until we try, right? I mean, how hard can it be?" I laughed nervously, a mixture of anticipation and affection. But that's how it always was with us. No matter the challenge, we faced it together. Even when his mom started dropping not-so-subtle hints about grandchildren every chance she got, we took it all in stride. "Clara, darling, when are you going to give me some grandbabies? You're not getting any younger, she'd say, her voice sugary sweet, but the underlying message far from it. I'd bite my tongue, plaster on a smile, and reply, "We're working on it, aren't we, Erik?" He'd jump in, "Yeah, Mom, lay off, will you? These things take time." But as the months passed, the pressure began to mount. not just from his mom, but from within. We wanted a family, but it wasn't happening as easily as we had hoped. Ever since Wilma found her new hobby of making my life a living hell, our home had become a battleground, with her sharp tongue as the main weapon. It wasn't just the occasional jab anymore. It was a full-blown assault on my self-esteem and role as a wife. It all came to a head one Sunday during lunch, a day that was supposed to be laid back and peaceful. Wilma, with her uncanny timing, dropped by uninvited, just as we were about to sit down. The air turned tense the moment she walked in, her eyes scanning the room like she was about to conduct a military inspection. "Well, isn't this quaint?" she started, her voice dripping with sarcasm as she eyed the modest spread I had prepared. "You really outdid yourself, Clara. I can see you've been slaving away in the kitchen all morning." Trying to keep the peace, I forced a smile. "It's nothing fancy, Wilma. Just something simple and quick. Please have a seat." But as we sat down, the onslaught began in earnest. "You know, Clara," Wilma said, loading her voice with condescension, "I was talking to Mrs. Henderson the other day, and she mentioned how her grandson was just born. It got me thinking, when are you and Erik going to give me some good news? It's not like you're getting any younger." My cheeks burned with a mix of embarrassment and anger. I glanced at Erik, hoping for some support, but he was suddenly very interested in his plate. "Mom, come on," Erik finally muttered, but it was half-hearted and we all knew it. But Wilma plowed on, relentless. "Erik, dear, I don't mean to be cruel, but you're not a charity. You work hard for your money. Why waste it on Clara if she can't even do her basic duties as a wife? A cleaning service and a cook would be much more efficient, don't you think?" That's when I couldn't hold back any longer. "Wilma, I am trying my best here. It's not like I don't want to have kids. And as for the house and my cooking, well, I didn't realize marriage was a service contract." Wilma scoffed. "Well, it's not a free ride either. You have responsibilities, Clara, which are clearly not fulfilling." The room was heavy with tension, and I could feel the tears pricking at the back of my eyes. But what hurt the most wasn't Wilma's words. It was Erik's silence. He finally spoke up, but it wasn't to defend me. "Yeah, Mom has a point. Maybe we should consider getting some help around here. It would make things easier for you, too." His words felt like a betrayal. It was clear, in the days that followed, I found myself navigating through this ordeal alone. Wilma's visits became more frequent, each one accompanied by sharper criticism. She'd inspect every corner of the house, pointing out every speck of dust or any pillow slightly out of place. "You call this clean?" she'd scoff. My eyes must be deceiving me, because this looks like a pigsty. Her comments about my appearance were just as cutting. "Is that what you're wearing? You know, a wife should dress to please her husband. It's no wonder Erik is always so tired. He has to come home to this." I tried to stand up for myself. "Wilma, I don't dress for Erik. I dress for myself. And he's tired because he works hard, not because of what I wear." But it was like talking to a brick wall. Wilma had made up her mind about me, and nothing I said or did would change it. What hurt the most was Erik's lack of support. Each night after his mom's departure, we'd argue. "Why won't you stand up for me, Erik? She's walking all over us, and you're just letting her," I'd plead. "Clara, she's old, set in her ways," he'd reply. "What do you want me to do? Kick my own mom out?" But it was clear that this was more than just about Wilma's disapproval. It was about us, our marriage, and whether we were strong enough to stand together or let Wilma's criticisms tear us apart. As the days turned into weeks, I realized that this wasn't just a phase. It was a full-blown siege, and if we didn't do something soon, there might not be anything left to save. The strain wasn't just felt at home, it extended to Erik himself. He started acting strangely, and it wasn't just stress from work. It was something else, something that twisted my stomach into knots. It started with the phone calls. Erik had always been open about his phone, but suddenly, he'd step out of the room every time he got a call. And it was always from the same number. John Work. Who's John Work? I asked one evening, trying to keep my voice casual. Erik flinched, a telltale sign that he was on edge. Oh, just a new guy at the office. Lots of questions, you know. But it didn't stop there. Erik, who had never cared much about his appearance, suddenly started dressing differently. Gone were the graphic tees and worn-out jeans. Now it was all crisp shirts, slacks, and cologne. Since when did he care about smelling like a department store? And the late nights at work became a regular thing. Another long one, babe. He'd text, trying not to sound too distant. Sorry, this project is killing me. Won't be late, I promise. But the clock would tick well past midnight before I heard his keys in the door. I tried to shake the feeling that something was off, but it clung to me like a shadow. That's when I made the decision to hire a private detective. It felt like something out of a bad TV show, but I had to know for sure. The evidence came in a plain brown envelope. Inside were photos of Erik with another woman, their intimacy undeniable. And the recording, it cut the deepest. Their conversations, filled with endearments and plans, left no room for doubt. They were in love. Or at least, he was with her. I sat there, the evidence spread out in front of me like a chilling tableau of betrayal. Each photo captured moments stolen from our life together, while the recorded words echoed the painful truth behind every "I love you" he had ever whispered in my ear. Yet, despite the weight of this truth, I chose to carry it alone, a painful burden too heavy to share just yet. I needed time to gather my thoughts, to formulate a plan that would allow me to navigate the wreckage of our marriage with my dignity intact. In the days that followed, Erik continued his charade, and I played my part as the perfect wife, concealing the turmoil raging within me behind a facade of smiles and pleasantries. Our conversations became a delicate dance around the truth, each word measured, every laugh forced. "Everything okay, Em? You've been quiet," Erik would ask, his concerns seemingly genuine. "Yeah, just tired, you know. Work's been crazy," I'd reply, the lie tasting bitter on my tongue. Or so I thought, until I stumbled upon a conversation that shattered the fragile illusion of our marriage. Passing by the slightly ajar door to Erik's office, their voices caught my attention. Erik and his mother, Wilma, engaged in a conversation that revealed more than I was prepared to hear. "I can't do this anymore, Mom. It's not just about the kids. I've lost all feeling for Clara. It's like we're roommates, not husband and wife." Erik's voice, strained and tired, drifted through the gap. Wilma's response was sharp, cutting. "Of course, you feel that way. She's not given you a child. And let's be honest, what else has she brought to this marriage?" Their words were like daggers, each one piercing my heart with a searing pain. They were plotting against me, using me until I was no longer of use to them, and then discarding me like yesterday's news. But their callousness sparked a fire within me, a burning desire for revenge. They thought they could manipulate me, control me. They were wrong. I wasn't just some pawn in their twisted game. A few days later, during a family dinner that felt more like a charade than a meal, Wilma brought up her upcoming birthday with that same smirk that had become all too familiar. "So, Clara dear, what are you planning for my birthday?" "Something special, I hope," she asked, her tone dripping with false sweetness. I met her gaze, my face a mask of calm. "Actually, Wilma, I was thinking of throwing you a dinner at the city's most luxurious restaurant. A night you won't forget." Her eyes lit up with greed, and she exchanged a quick, satisfied look with Erik. They thought they had me cornered, but little did they know, I was already 2 steps ahead. As the weeks passed, leading up to Wilma's 70th birthday, I meticulously planned every detail of my revenge. It was simple yet bold, like a plot straight out of a movie. Host a lavish dinner, lure them into a false sense of security, and then drop the bombshell that would shake their world to its core. But like any good plot, the devil truly resides in the details. The night before Wilma's extravagant birthday bash, the tension at home was almost palpable. Erik, seemingly oblivious to the storm brewing, lounged casually on the couch, absorbed in his phone. "Everything set for tomorrow?" he asked, not bothering to look up. "Oh, you could say that," I replied, my tone masking the turmoil inside. The day arrived, and as guests began to fill the opulent dining room reserved for Wilma's celebration, the air was thick with anticipation. My heart raced, not from nerves, but from the adrenaline of what was about to unfold. Wilma, always the center of attention, basked in the adulation, reveling in the luxury of her surroundings. "Clara, you've outdone yourself. This place is exquisite," she exclaimed, her voice loud enough for nearby tables to hear. As we all settled in, the meal proceeded with the forced merriment that often accompanies such family gatherings. Laughs were shared, stories exchanged, but underneath it all, I could feel the tension building. Then, as the dessert plates were cleared away, the waiter approached with the final act of the evening, the bill. He discreetly informed us that the dinner cost a staggering $33,000. Without missing a beat, I handed over my card, the gesture unnoticed by most. It was then that Erik, with a smirk that didn't quite reach his eyes, decided to drop his bombshell. "Clara, I think it's time everyone knew. I'm tired of this, of us. I want a divorce." His words hung in the air like a toxic cloud, suffocating all other noise in the room. Before I could even process the full weight of his statement, Wilma piped up, her voice sharp and unforgiving. "Well, then, since that's out in the open, I think it's best you leave, Clara. We're celebrating family tonight, and, well, you're no longer part of it." The room went deadly silent. Every eye was on me, waiting to see how I'd crumble. But I didn't. With a calm I didn't feel, I stood, nodded, and walked out without a word. The cool night air hit me like a slap as I made my way home, the finality of everything that had happened washing over me in waves. By the time I reached his apartment, a plan had formed. I packed my essentials, the numbness giving way to a cold resolve. This was it, the end of one life and the start of another. As I zipped the last suitcase, my phone started buzzing relentlessly, Wilma's voice screeching from the other end. "Clara, the payment didn't go through. You need to fix this now." Oh, the sweet irony. In my preparations for the inevitable, I had secured my exit strategy. I had blocked the shared account, knowing it would be the first thing Erik would try to use against me. "Sorry, Wilma, but since I'm no longer part of the family, as you so eloquently put it, I'm afraid you'll have to sort this out yourself." Her outrage was palpable even through the phone, but it was music to my ears. The chaos that unfolded was a fitting end to the farce my marriage had become. Reports came through the grapevine of the restaurant staff demanding payment, of Wilma's escalating tantrums, and eventually, the arrival of the police to calm the storm she had become. In the end, it was Erik and his relatives who had to pull together the money to settle the bill, a poetic justice for the betrayal and humiliation they had subjected me to. The morning after the dinner disaster felt like waking up to the aftermath of a storm. I had my plan, my resolve, and a set of divorce papers in my hand as I made my way back to what used to be our shared home for the last time. As I stepped through the door, the tension in the air was suffocating, thick enough to slice with a knife. Erik and Wilma stood there, looking like they had been at each other's throats. The sight of me seemed to unite them in hostility. "You've got some nerve showing up here after last night," Erik spat out, his face contorted with anger and disbelief. Wilma, ever the viper, added her poison. Ungrateful wretch. You embarrassed us in front of the whole city. Do you know how humiliating it was to have the police calm me down? People were laughing, filming. I met their fury with a calm I didn't feel. Embarrassed? You think that's your biggest problem right now? I tossed the divorce papers on the table, the photos of Erik's infidelity on top. You should be more concerned with this. The color drained from Erik's face as he picked up the photos, his mother peering over his shoulder. Their outrage turned to shock, then to panic as they realized the extent of what I had. And let's not forget the prenup, shall we? I continued, my voice steady. You cheat, you pay. $100,000 to be exact. Wilma's face twisted into a snarl. You wouldn't dare. You can't do this to us. Oh, but I can and I will. My tone was cold, final. Finally, the reality of the situation dawned on Erik. Please, let's talk about this. We can fix it. I couldn't help but laugh, bitter and hard. Fix it? You think you can just undo everything with a few words? No. Erik, it's done. Wilma, ever the manipulator, tried to soften her approach, her voice dripping with false concern. Clara, darling, think about what you're doing. This will ruin us. That ship has sailed, Wilma. You should have thought about that before. The begging turned to pleading, their words a desperate scramble to salvage what they could. But my mind was made up. I was done being the victim, done with their lies and manipulations. In the end, Erik had no choice but to borrow the money from his parents to pay me. As I left that house for the last time, check in hand, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. After everything went down, I used the payout from Erik to put a down payment on a small but cozy place of my own. It's funny how much peace you can find in the walls of a place that's just yours, where every nook feels like a sanctuary from the chaos of the past. Life's quieter now, and I like it that way. I've got a job that keeps me busy, friendly neighbors who nod and smile, and a little garden that's all mine to tend to. But every once in a while, the grapevine tosses a juicy bit my way about Erik and Wilma. Just the other day, I was grabbing coffee from the corner spot where locals hang out, and I bumped into someone from the old neighborhood. After the usual pleasantries, they leaned in, their voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Hey, have you heard about the latest drama with your ex and his mom? I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow, a mix of curiosity and detachment taking hold. Can't say that I have. Do tell. Well, they started, clearly savoring the moment. It seems Wilma's not too pleased with Erik's new girlfriend. Word is, they're at it like cats and dogs. Makes your situation look like a walk in the park. The conversation moved on, but as I walked away, coffee in hand, I couldn't shake the feeling of utter relief. There was a time when news like that would have sent me spiraling, but now it was just another piece of someone else's story. These days, my biggest concern is whether my tomatoes will ripen before the squirrels get to them, or if I'll ever get the hang of yoga without looking like a newborn deer on ice. Life's simpler, quieter, and infinitely sweeter on this side of chaos.